how much protein do you actually need as a vegan? Now, protein is something that I used to obsess over, especially when I was eating meat 3.5 years ago. All my life, since I've started training, protein, protein, protein. And that was sort of drilled into me that you needed to have this much protein. You had to have protein. Protein is the building blocks of muscle. And that is true. I was, and I feel like a lot of people, even now in the fitness industry, from what I'm seeing on TikTok, on social media, on YouTube, people are so obsessed with protein and overestimate how much protein they actually need. And I've been there, I've been in the same boat, and I want to talk about how much protein you actually need, especially as a vegan, and for anyone, not just a vegan, how much protein a person needs, a person who lifts weights, a person who does resistance training in order to build muscle, lose weight, how much protein you actually need. Now, there's this story when before I went vegan 3.5 years ago, I was vegan. I went vegan for about a year in 2015 when I was in high school, in my last year of high school. And the reason why I went vegan was purely for health reasons. And I sort of, it wasn't really for the animals. So I wouldn't say vegan, I was just plant based. But so I went plant based and I did it all wrong. I was eating just lentils every single day, just one type of lentils, and I didn't know anything about amino essential acids, about having to eat a variety of different proteins, and I did it wrong. I did get leaner. I lost a lot of muscle because I wasn't, I didn't plan it out. I was just eating lentils, hoping that it would, sort of help me. All I cared about was the protein, and I was hitting my protein goals, but it was all coming from one source of protein. So I was doing that. I was aiming to hit 200 grams of protein, which was insane. 200 grams of protein just from lentils. It's a lot of food. And I would just struggle so much that I eventually, a few months in, I reached out to someone to ask them for help and how I should go about this. And in my head, I knew that I had to hit 200 grams of protein. Where I got the number 200 grams of protein was the people that I followed on social media, on YouTube. In They would just preach you needed. I would follow this workout plan, this training brand plan. This guy that I highly respected, and I still respect, but now that I look back on it, I realized that a lot of the things that he was preaching was bro science, but it did help me to get to a point. He did teach me a lot about weight training, about dieting down, but yeah, he had a training program which was 8 weeks. He had a daily video program, and he had this macro calculator. And when I put my details in, it told me that I had to hit 220 grams of protein a day based on whatever information that I put in. And that was the number that was stuck in my head: 220 grams of protein. So I did not know how to do that. As a vegan, I didn't know what kind of foods I had to eat. And back then, mock meats and things like this, it wasn't as popular. I don't think I really tried. Maybe I just didn't look for it, but I don't think I ever had mock meat in that when I've been vegan in that year. Like, I probably didn't even know what it was. And things like tempeh, things like all those foods, had no idea what they were. All I knew was lentils, tofu, beans. And I sort of reached out to people in the vegan fitness community. There was this page called Adelaide Strength. I think it was Adelaide Strength, Adelaide Vegan Strength, back when I was living in Adelaide. Um, so I asked in that group, can someone help me out? I'm trying to hit 225 grams of protein as a vegan. I really want to do this. I see the health benefits of being a vegan, but I just can't seem to hit that number. And I had someone reach out to me. I had someone message me, and they they pretty much told me that, look, they asked me for my weight, how tall I was, all of that stuff, and he pretty much told me, like, look, you don't need 220 grams of protein. You need like 140 grams of protein based on what you've told me. I don't know why you're looking to hit 220 grams of protein. And in that moment, I, my first instinct was like, this guy has no idea what he's talking about, because number one, he didn't it seemed like he knew what he was talking about, but he didn't have the physique to back it up. So I was young, so my first instinct was this guy has no idea what he's talking about. The guy that I was watching, the fitness guy, he had a good physique. He's been trained, a famous personal trainer. He has a big background behind him. So obviously, I would trust his words more than some random dude off of some random Facebook group. He didn't even look like he lifted. Why would I trust him and not trust this big YouTube fitness guy? So I took his words and I'm like, thank you for your help. Thanks, blah, blah, blah. And I kept on trying to hit 220 grams of protein, which I couldn't. The maximum I would be able to hit with just lentils would be like 170 or even 180 grams if I really forced myself. But it was miserable and I ended up getting really lean, but also losing a lot of muscle. And that, because I was doing it for health reasons, it was easy for me to give up. And I didn't know much about the animal side of it back then. That was 2015. And part of the reasons I gave up was because I was doing it for the health reasons. There was nothing moral or ethical about why I went plant based, but also because if I thought that I needed this much protein to have a good physique and I couldn't get it as a on a plant based diet, what was the point? What was the benefit for my health? If I was doing it for health and I couldn't hit this number, what was the point? So it was easy for me to give up. And I did give it up. And 2015, 4 years, it took me 4 years, 3.5 years to sort of understand the animal side of it. And I got a pet dog and everything sort of fell in place with each other. And 2019, that's when I went vegan, fully committed because for the animals. And at this point, I had done my research. I've done everything that I needed to do. And I knew that you can build muscle as a vegan. You can have a good physique as a vegan. And that's when I realized that the amount of protein you need is exactly what that guy told me 4 years ago. 140 grams. Even 140 grams for how much I was weighing back then was a lot of protein. 140 grams is how much protein I'm eating right now. So you don't need that much protein. And you have all these people on social media, on YouTube, on TikTok, trying to tell you you need this much protein, you need to have this much protein. And if you look at why they're saying what they're saying, they're selling a product. They know that you can't hit this much protein with whole foods. They either have protein powders that they're selling or some sort of supplement to help you hit those protein goals. And it just makes sense. You don't need that much protein. Scientifically, right now, how much protein you need is take your weight in kilograms and multiply that by 1.6. So I weigh 83 kilos right now, times 1.6, that's around 130 grams of protein. And I'm easily hitting that every single day. I'm aiming for around anywhere between 130 to 150 grams of protein. But even with that protein amount, I am looking so good. I feel good and it's easy to hit. And the foods that I'm hitting it from, whole foods, plant-based. Things like lentils, beans, and chickpeas, tofu. That's literally all my protein sources right there. So that's all the protein that you need. You don't need as much protein as people tell you to. And there's so many people out there that are eating way more protein than me, but they've been eating that much for a while now. But the thing is, it's not always about the number of protein in grams. It's also about the quality of the foods that you're eating. You have to make sure the quality of your foods are good. And whole foods plant-based, that is the healthiest, that is the most organic, that is the most natural way to eat foods grown on this earth. Whole foods plant-based. So highly recommend getting on a whole foods plant-based lifestyle. You can be vegan and still not eat whole foods plant-based. So what that means is, this used to be me as well. When I first went vegan, I wasn't always whole foods plant-based. I was eating mock meat every single day because it did help me hit my protein. But it's not the best for your body. It's not the best for your health. It's fine every once in a while. Nothing wrong with mock meat. In fact, plant-based meat is much healthier than normal meat. So there's nothing wrong with that. But every single day, that's a bit too much. That's what I was doing. And then I switched to a whole foods plant-based diet. You're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel more energetic. You're gonna feel fuller, especially when you're cutting. Right now in this cut, whole foods plant-based, they're so low in calories, high in volume, they keep me fuller for longer. So I highly recommend you jump on a whole foods plant-based diet. All you need is 1.6 times your body weight in kilos. That's all you need. Don't try to aim for more than that. I mean, you can have more than that if you want, if you prefer, but minimum, that's all you need. And I'm the kind of person that obviously on days I hit more than that, and that's okay. As long as I'm hitting minimum 130 grams of protein a day. I'm not trying to aim for 200, 220 grams of protein. That's just insane, and I can't believe that I used to do that. But now I'm bigger than I was back then, 4 years ago, obviously, and I'm eating less protein than I did back then. But the source of foods that I'm eating it from, higher quality and more nutritious, more natural, and more better for you. So that's all the protein you need. How much protein do you need as a vegan? I just told you, 1.6 times your body weight in kilograms. And that's how many grams of protein you need to hit. And I don't even care about protein anymore. Like, I don't obsess about protein nearly as much as I used to. I don't obsess about it at all. All I care about is eating from a wide variety of foods. And I know that I'm going to get my protein in regardless. And I just try to make sure my food tastes good, that I'm eating from different sources. And that's my priority right now. Just make sure you're eating from a wide variety of sources, not like me who was eating just lentils every day, but chickpeas, beans, tofu, tempeh, all different sources of protein. There's so many out there, so many different plants out there, and so many ways to cook them, so many recipes. There's just no excuse anymore. Protein is not as important as you think it is. I mean, it is part of the building process of building muscle, staying lean, but just make sure you're eating from the right sources of food. If you want to see the kind of foods that I eat to build muscle, lose weight, to get shredded as a vegan, you can click right here.